So for those who wake up at 4 a.m., 4 p.m. is nap time. What's the time now? I'm okay. Are you all okay?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Should we make sure?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, everyone stand up. Not your song. We're already awakened. You don't need to wake up. Everyone else, let's all stand. Good. Now sit. Now stand again. Good. Am I audible well?
Yeah.
Samasta jana kalyane niratam karunamayam namami chinmayam devam sadgurum brahmavidharam sadgurum brahmavidharam. Advaita Vedanta, the philosophy of monism, finds its cardinal teachings rooted in the premise of one solitary, non-dual substratum as foundational to all superimpositions projected upon it, whether as avivanta, meaning that which seems to appear yet is not actually. Yamasa Maya. Or, from the highest perspective of this philosophy, as perpetually aja, means even the superimpositions are just not. The philosophy goes as far as proclaiming also that anyone who gives even an iota of reality to this dream we call our life and this world is, at best, pitiable. Jate Brahmani vartate prabhupatte rajam sarvam tena asau kripanaha smritaha. Kripanaha, pitiable, are those who believe this world to be a real creation. The bold proclamations of Gaudapadacharya in his Mandukya Karikas. An almost unhuman conceptualization to accept. But therein actually lies the secret to its conceptualization and acceptance. And what is that? Being unhuman. Because only when the realization dawns that we are not human, actually, can the purports of this highest knowledge be imbibed into our true selves. We are not human. I hope this much Vedanta most of us have been exposed to. We are not any of the upadhis, the conditionings or limiting adjuncts that humanness superimposes upon us. This lies in the premise that we are actually supreme consciousness only. Divine consciousness seemingly embodied through this human upadhi. This understanding was clear to our rishis, to the ancient mystic seers of yore. And standing most eminently amongst them were our Brahmavadinis, the female rishikas of our Upanishadic era, who were merely stri at the level of Annamaya Kosha. Means they were only female via the facade of a body. But their minds and spirits were unquestionably beyond gender, beyond any of the dichotomies that this world superimposes upon us. For they knew that a woman have the makings to be a true sannyasin, or seeker into the highest. But then, neither would a man. Because anyone who as yet still identified at such a sthula, such a gross level of identification as male and female, did not possess the mental maturity to imbibe with purity and clarity these transcendental truths. This was the caliber of our female sages, whence in their complete disregard for gender biases rightfully earned their title, which designated them as Advaitic, Vedantic Brahmavadins. Amongst them, two particular gems that shone brightly were in the form of our Brahmavadini, Gargi Vachaknavi of the Shukla Yajurveda, and sage Vakdevi of Rig Veda. Today we shall utilize these two personas as exemplars in exploring our topic of female sages and Advaita Vedanta propagated by them. So, we'll begin. Nestled in the heart of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad's 3rd chapter comes a narrative of one formidable female who is seen to decimate a sabha of prolific male minds of the era with her daring demeanor and her sagacious wisdom. In the court of Videha Raja Janaka, the king of Mithila, the revered Yajnavalkya Rishi would come under fire in penetrating Shastriya debate. He would be surrounded by other distinguished minds of the generation, most unique amongst them arguably being our Brahmavadini Gargi Vachaknavi. Her mere introduction to the inquiry that she would place before Yajnavalkya Rishi stood as a testimony to her fiery spirit. What did she do? As she arose in that court, she proclaimed the 2 prongs of the question that she would place to be akin to the release of 2 deadly arrows, delivered with the intent to debilitate. I'm not exaggerating, it's written in the Upanishad that way. She says, Yajnavalkya, still yourself. I will now release, these are not 2 questions, but 2 arrows I direct at you. Such fire, such spirit. Our Bhagavan Shankaracharya would say, Jantu naam nara janma durlabhamataha pumston tato viprada. That pumston, that manliness of character, means that strength too of exerting a courage of conviction and standing by the knowledge which she possessed was definitely present in Gargi. What she would ask was as potent as the answer which came, because her question itself established her as a Pakka Vedantin. So what was this insightful inquiry? She submitted, by what, O Yajnavalkya, is that pervaded which is beyond the heavens and below the earth, which is the heaven and the earth itself, as well as between them? Kasmin tat otam cha protam cha iti. What is that which warps and weaves its pervasiveness in and through that which was, is, and will be? It is said that by merely assessing the quality of a question, we can come to deduce the caliber of the mind which formulated it. By this measure, Gargi's question spoke volumes about her character. And as with all the great ones, they never actually ask a question that they don't already know the answer to. And so the answer which Yajnavalkya Rishi would deliver actually stood as an affirmation of her own aparuksha brahmajnana. What did he say? Etadvaita raksharam gargi asthulam aranu ahasvam adhirgam alohitam ityadi. In essence, he delivered to her the neti neti mahavakya, revealing the true identity of that transcendental supreme and the unity in its expression at the individual and totality levels. In her acceptance and propagation of this stood the establishment of herself as a sage of the Advaitic traditions, and earned her the title of Navaratna. Nava 9 Ratna, one of the 9 gems of the court of King Janaka. King Janaka, who was known for sabhas of hundreds of scholarly minds, she was labeled as one of the 9 gems. Amongst an entirely male-predominant assembly, she shone as the solitary female propounder of Advaita. This was our guide. And with this small excerpt is addressed one half of our topic for today, which is the persona of females in Advaita Vedanta. By Gargi's persona was shown that quality that made her a sage was that inner strength, that pumstvam, that ability to live the truths of Adhyatma Shastra, to have vairagya, take sannyasa and elevate to the level of a sage. And those qualities are not external, they are internal. And so through Gargi we understand that there are actually no female sages in Advaita Vedanta. There are no male sages in Advaita Vedanta. There are just sages. Now, for the second half of our topic, Advaita Vedanta as propagated by these female sages. To explore this part, we shall look at yet another gem of our Vedantic parampara in the form of Vak-Devi. In the holy pages of our Rig Veda, this mantra drishta of the exalted Devi Suktam finds mention. And therein she establishes herself with the makings of a true Advaitic Rishika. How? Core to Advaitic philosophy stands the Anirvachaniya Khyati, which seeks to postulate the nature of that primordial error due to which the jiva becomes binded in the cycle of samsara, that cycle of birth, death, reincarnation, ultimately concealing that ultimate truth of Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva Navara. The fundamental Viparita Bhavana, the erroneous notion which propagates this error, is the jiva's non-apprehension of its true nature and the subsequent misapprehension of the world around it, circumstances, people. As Gaudapada Acharya says, Jivam kalpayate purvam tato bhavan prithak vidhan. This non-apprehension, agrahana, and subsequent misapprehension, anyatha grahana, we find reflected in the primary pair of Viparita Bhavanas propounded by Advaita Vedanta. Namely, first, Anatmani Atma Buddhi. Anatmani, in Anatma. In that which I am not, the notion I am that. Essentially the antithesis to Jivo Brahmaiva Navara. And second Viparita Bhavana, Jagati Satyatva Buddhi. Jagati, in the world, notion of reality in an illusory world. Essentially the antithesis to Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Through the works of Vak-Devi, we shall see how she very subtly subverts both of these Viparita Bhavanas. So the first, in the 10th mandala of Rig Veda comes a suktam presented in most unique style. Suktams are commonly delivered in second or third person voice. referencing the deity to be propitiated as an external entity. Here in Devi Suktam, Vagdevi as though acts as a conduit through which for goddess to channel and speaks in direct first-person voice as Aham, I, or Maya, through me. A most moving perspective, full of direct energy and dynamism, which mitigates beautifully against this first Vibrita Bhavana, the erroneous notion of who I am. When she says, Aham Chikitushi Prathama Yajneyana, she says, I am pure awareness, first amongst those to be worshipped. For an individual to proclaim themselves to be the most worshipful, divine consciousness is as though to answer that famous quip of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi when he says, to which I are you referring? Who is that I? In Panchadashi, Vidyaranya Swamiji references 3 levels of I. Vagdevi's revelation is an ode to the third and highest transcendental I, concealed within all of us, and which she seeks to awaken out of us through this suttam, urging us past that Satyanrithe Mithuni Kritya Aham of Adhyasa Bhashya. Means that mixed up identity of the suffering jiva, the struggling jiva, and its notion of a separate existence. As the great ones have said, all of spirituality is aimed only at saving us from the tragedy of a separate existence, of becoming an insignificant speck in this vast universe. We suffer because we have alienated ourselves from that supreme reality and now seek an escape from that isolation. See, understand how this plays into our life. Why do I need to understand my real nature? Because due to this misunderstanding, see, in our ambition to be unique and outstanding in this world, we have inadvertently disconnected ourselves from the embrace of that loving divine spirit of the totality. Because to be an individual, to be an impressive individual, I cannot merely fade into the crowd of the totality, right? And so, we let our ego and its obsession for distinction drag us away from our innate oneness. A self-inflicted disintegration of our personality. Why do we do it? Because we cannot escape our obsessions. But we can cease nurturing them. For anything that is not fed will, in due course of time, starve and perish. Does this mean, though, that we should not strive for distinction and achievements in life? No. What it means is that we must learn how to let achievements happen through us and not define our identity by them. Karmani eva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. How? By understanding ourselves as a conduit for something much greater. Understanding that instrumentship within us. And when we can act from there, see how distinction will come even unasked. And it will be so much more fulfilling. Because we act from a place unified with the totality instead of trying to elevate our individuality. This Vagdevi understood. And she channeled. We hear this in the 4th Anuvaka of Devi Sukta when she says, Mayaso annam atti, yo vipashyati, Yaha praniti, yai shrinot. She says, Maya, through me alone, he who eats, eats. He who sees, sees. The nourishment in food, the rhythm of breath, the power of sight, hearing, speech. I am the latent force behind all of it. this identical sentiment we see echoed in Sama Shruti. There it is said, Keneshitam padati preshitam manaha, Kena pranaf pratamaf preti yuktaha, Keneshitam vachamimam vadanti, Chakshushrotram ka udevo yunakti. The Talvakara Shakha of Samaveda, the astute student of Kenopanishad queries, directed by what divine force does the mind of the senses alight upon their sense objects? By what force do they execute their prescribed duties and stay within the dharma of those enjoined duties? As though in response to this insightful question, Vagdevi answers, Maya. By me this is done. Brahma aham asmi. And so she says, Maya so annam anti. Of he who eats, I am the eater. As though returning that call of Taittiriya Upanishads, Ahamannam, 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 ahamannadaha. She says, I am the food, I am the eater. I am that pure consciousness refracted through Vyashti Advaita Chaitanya that has become the eater. I am that pure consciousness refracted through Samashti Prapanchatrayam that has become the food itself. Not only am I this world of objects, but I am the subject itself, the enlivener of it all. Maya so annam atti. In this way, Vagdevi decimates that first viparita bhavana, that erroneous notion, revealing the true nature of I. Now, in the 7th verse of Devi Suktam, she mitigates once again against the second viparita bhavana, this time, Jagati Satyatva Buddhi, in which she reveals the reality of what this world is. This primary tenet of Advaita Vedanta is established in Taittiriya Upanishad's Brahmanandavali. Therein, it is said that Supreme Consciousness, after having created this world of objects, then entered into it, not merely enlivening it, but as it itself. Tat srishta tadeva nupravishad. In concurrence with this thought, Vagdevi imparts, do not be fooled by what you see. This world is more than what you think. Search the substratum. Relinquish your satyatva buddhi in mithya vastu and understand Brahma satyam, jagan mithya. As Brahman, she says, I am the source of the progenitor. My primordial origin lies in the infinite ocean of consciousness from whence universes arise, pervaded by my essence. Mama yonir apsuhu antah samudre, tato vitishte bhuvanan vishva. Looking out through her Advaitic eyes, the illusion of the world as though disappears. But the question we need to ask is, why don't we see that? It is the clinging to the false that makes the truth so difficult to see. But alas, the plague of our human minds is that we are not ready to give up our clinging. Remember, nothing of value can happen to a mind that knows exactly what it wants. Rigidity is not conducive to realization. And so when we are ready to change the way we look at things, only then will the things we look at change. To conclude, the final doctrine expounded by Vagdevi seems a mystical call across space and time to her Brahmavadini Bhagini, to her sister in spirituality, Gargi. For she concludes in Rig Veda by answering the question that Gargi had asked in Yajur Veda, when she said, "What is that which warps and weaves through and beyond the heavens and this earth?" Here in Rig Veda, Bhakdevi concludes the teaching with the answer. "Beyond the heavenly realms and below this earth, my vastness surpasses all boundaries. Immanent yet transcendent am I, immeasurable in my divine greatness." Throughout the teachings of Bhakdevi can be traced that solitary thread of Advaitic truths. When studied closer, her revelations possess discrete hints towards creation theory aligned to the Advaitic principle of Vivartavada, but then later on subtly alluring in the direction of Ajatavada. Again, the opening of Devi Suktam seems from a Bahujivavada perspective, but as it concludes on a note that can be integrated into Ekajiva thinking. But by far the most resplendent gem of our Advaitic philosophy displayed by her is in her referencing to Rudra and other devatas in this suktam. For with that she affirms that harmony of Advaita Vedanta in its all-encompassing embrace of every philosophy. Dvaita, Vishishta Dvaita, Shakta, Shaiva, Vaishnava traditions. For we are not Advaya because we stand alone, but because we embrace all into us as one. And so, littered throughout her breathtaking renditions comes hints of mention to the dual names and forms of God. For the most pristine and paramount unity, oneness, is that which can be captured amidst the diversity. For our primary tenet is not that nothing is only Brahman, but that everything is as Brahman. Because unity does not exclude diversity. It merely expresses that same unity diversely. Ekam sat vipraha bahudha vadanti. In this way, our female sages thread their journey to spiritual unity and that blissful divinity. Thank you.
In this sublime presentation, Brahmacharini Jyoti Chaitanya ji, she took us back to time almost before memory, thousands of years ago, to the court of the Emperor Janaka, where the great sage Gargi, she participates in the Brahmodaya, the Sabha, the discussion, debate on the ultimate reality. And then further back into the very beginnings of the Vedic literature to Vagdevi. And from there we see how she has drawn the central tenets of what we know as Shankara Advaita. She referenced Gaudapada. I quoted from Gaudapada a number of times. One of my favorite texts, the Mandukya Karika. I asked a monk in the Himalayas, what's the difference between Gaudapada and Shankara? An Advaitic monk. He said, Shankar to Jagat Guru the na. Shankara is a world teacher. So he had to teach it in a way that is acceptable to everybody, so that it propagates, it spreads. Then I said, what was Gaudapada? And he looked surprised and he smiled and said, Gaudapada to Bhakkar Mahatma the. That is a peculiar phrase used in the Himalayas, which means a monk who doesn't care about anything in the universe at all. Just one thing, the ultimate truth. So that was Gaudapada. And Shankara presented the same truth. And this formulation which Jyoti Chaitanya ji used, I've never heard this earlier. To realize ourselves, being human will not help. We have to be unhuman, not inhuman. So the truth is beyond our mere human manifestation. It's an impersonal truth. She also pointed out the transcendent and immanent nature of this ultimate reality. Swami Vivekananda said, we Hindus worship a transcendent, immanent God. And that she displayed how it is found so profoundly and so poetically in the Vagdevis, the Suktam there in the Rig Veda. We thank her for her wonderful, very sublime presentation, inspiring presentation. And now it's your turn. I can see you're already ready with questions standing there. Why are the 2 weeks a little imbalanced? And there's some more here and very few on that side. I think now Shantanu will take it away.